All right, let's dive right in. We are living through a fundamental shift in how our world works, a moment the source material calls the intelligence reckoning. So let's break down exactly what that means and why it matters to you. And this quote, this really gets to the heart of it. Think about it. Every major revolution before this was about machines doing what our bodies could do, just better and faster. But this time, this is about industrializing the one thing we thought was uniquely human, thinking itself. The term for this whole process is the silicon shift. Basically, we're moving from an economy that runs on cognitive private credit, the individual brain power and mental work of millions of people, to one that runs on synthetic consensus, a kind of collective, synthesized intelligence created by AI. And that, right there, is the new economic battleground. Now, to really grasp how huge this is, we gotta look back. Industrial revolutions always transform how we work, and they tend to follow a pattern. But as you're about to see, this time really is different. It all started with just pure biological power, human and animal muscle. Then, boom, the first surge hits with steam and mechanical autonomy. The second surge brought us the assembly line, standardizing motion. The third, that was computers, managing the flow of information. Each one was a massive leap. And that brings us to today, the fourth surge, which isn't just a leap, it's capturing the entire decision-making process. So that first surge, with all its mechanical power, it shattered the limits of human muscle, but it also created what the source calls a muscle stalemate. Suddenly, it wasn't about how strong you are anymore. The value shifted to simply being able to control the machine. Then came the assembly line, which created something called the zero-interest trap. Jobs became so repetitive, so siloed, that the main skill was just following the rules. You didn't need to understand how your tiny piece of the puzzle fit into the grand scheme of things at all. And then, the third surge brought us computers. They were incredible at automating all the invisible mental logistics, the calculations, the data sorting. This became the private credit that propped up our whole modern economy. But, and this is key, it still needed a human to tell it what to do, to provide the logic. And that brings us right back to now, the fourth surge. This idea of a decision-making valve is so important. See, AI isn't just a new tool to help us turn the valve anymore. No way. It's capturing the entire mechanism, from the first piece of data to the final decision. So, with all that history as a backdrop, the question becomes pretty obvious, right? Who is actually on the front lines of this thing? Which jobs are really on the chopping block? Hey, remember that zero-interest trap from the factory floor? Well, the source argues we're now staring down the barrel of its white-collar cousin. We're talking about jobs that are all about predictable, rules-based thinking. Think about it. Roles like basic accounting, routine contract reviews, even a lot of frontline coding. These are all forms of that cognitive private credit we mentioned. They're predictable mental tasks that an AI can now do, not just cheaper, but at virtually zero marginal cost. And who's next? Middle management. For decades, the whole point of a middle manager was to be a kind of human bridge. They smoothed over all the information gaps between departments, acting as what the source calls an opacity buffer. But here's the thing, AI creates near-perfect data transparency. Suddenly, that opacity buffer just evaporates. And when the fog clears, you realize you don't need the human bridge anymore. The role itself starts to look obsolete. So all of this, as you can imagine, leads to a massive debate about the future. Will new jobs just pop up to replace the old ones like they always have? Or are we facing something totally new? A stalemate. So on one hand, you've got the optimists. They say, don't worry, new jobs like prompt engineer will always emerge. But then the realists fire back, arguing that unlike a factory job, a prompt engineer's work is ridiculously scalable. One person, one really good prompt engineer, can now generate the output that used to take hundreds, maybe even thousands of people. And I want you to really let this number sink in. The potential leverage here is staggering. One single AI supervisor might be able to do the work that once required 1,000 junior analysts. This isn't a one-for-one replacement. This is a wholesale consolidation of labor. So where does that leave us humans? Well, the source suggests that our value is going to shift to what it calls high-friction traits. You know, the stuff that's really, really hard to turn into code? Deep empathy, the nuance of being physically present with someone, and complex, unscripted negotiation. Okay, but this isn't just about jobs, not by a long shot. The final piece of this puzzle looks at the incredible stress this shift puts on our entire social contract. And this, folks, is where the stakes get unbelievably high. This chart right here shows the core economic threat. It's a world where AI allows the economy, the GDP, to soar, to grow like crazy, while wages for the vast majority of human workers just flatline, or worse, decline. It's the moment when productivity and paychecks completely and permanently split apart. This leads to what's called the UBI stalemate, which touches on that whole universal basic income debate. And it's a massive paradox, isn't it? If the main valve for getting money to people, a job, is turned off for millions, who is going to have the money to buy all the amazing stuff the AI economy is producing? And if we don't figure that out, the source warns of a systemic contagion. I want you to think back to the 2008 financial crisis, but instead of bad mortgages causing the whole system to crash, the trigger is the structural collapse of the labor market and the social contract itself. And that's where we're left. The Silicon Shift isn't some distant sci-fi future. It's happening right now all around us. So the question really isn't if this reckoning is coming. The only question that matters is, are we ready for it?